Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Viewers, I'm your host Faiza Naqvi with the prayer that may Allah bless you all with long, healthy, blessed life and increase your tawfiqat khair in all manners. As we are approaching to Mahiaza and we are supposed to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and his 72 companions. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam taught us all by his sacrifice that what matter is the truth and the justice and the international social justice which matters. It doesn't matter how many people do we have in our who with us as a companion or not, but he taught us like we have to stand and stood by the truth, and we have to fight back for the humanity and the message of love, compassion and humanity he has given to all the humanity. As we are obviously celebrating Mahiaza very soon in 1 or 2 days, so we will be looking at it in depth in a way that when we are living in a plural society where we do have different kind of generation living together, and how they do look at us, like when we are celebrating for example 10th of Muharram or Arba'in or Majalis and all that. So what kind of message they are taking from us and what kind of message we are giving to us, how much relevance does it have for them, even though it is the message of love, humanity and justice for all the mankind, and everyone is supposed to understand that. And are we able to convey that message effectively to the whole society, and are we connecting the other people with this message effectively or not? So in that regard, we are going to talk about like Imam Hussain as the ultimate icon of humanity, dignity and freedom. So on this topic we will be speaking with our honorable guests we have with us, and we'll move on to them and we'll talk about it further in depth, what they see and how they see this topic and how they see the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam in totality, and are we really conveying it to the other people in an effective way. So we do have Brother Mohsin Abbas from London with us, who is producer, analyst and an anchor as well, and we do have Dr. Anayatullah Indarabi from London. I would convey my salam to both of you and welcome to the show. And moving on to the topic, first of all, I would like to ask Aga Sayyid Inayatullah Indarabi that how do you see this message of dignity, freedom and justice for which Imam Hussain stood, and how do you see that today when we are commemorating these days, how much we are conveying it this message to the society effectively or not? How do you see that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thanks for having me on the show. This is a privilege to speak on a subject where I myself, or I think anyone till the end of time, they will find themselves too little, too small, while speaking on such a thing as Imam Hussein's martyrdom. It is such a lofty thing in the humanity that so far it's matchless. It has not been matched. It could not be matched. So speaking on this is really, I feel humbled by it. For bringing some further clarification to our discussion, let me divide it in two things, what we are talking about. One is the Imam Hussein's martyrdom in Karbala. The other is what followed, that is the message, the narrative, which was essentially and originally started by Lady Zainab. She founded it, and it was faithfully continued by the community who felt about it, for whom it was a shock, and they continued it in the Muharram processions and azadari. And so it became a proper narrative. If it was not that, if it was not the Muharram Azadari and the commemoration, it would have not occupied a place in the public life. It would have been an academic thing, a historical event that had taken place so many years before, and it would have been just that. But this has made it a real life, something in the public life about which people talk and which occupies the real time space. So when we talk of Imam Husain's martyrdom, we are talking of these two things: the martyrdom itself, what and why of it, and the Muharram and the Azadari and the commemoration. This commemoration has a meaning, and we'll come to it. It has a meaning for general people, for general humanity, but it has more meaning and it has more significance in the Muslim community, in the Muslim Ummah itself. There it is something, it raises questions. Muharram commemoration, it is basically, it's a very significant, it's a very significant thing happening. That's why we see a lot of opposition, or a lot of people say why it is being done. It's not within the Sunnah or whatever, but because it raises very important questions. Now, that's it. We might come to it later if you ask me about it. But about Imam Husain's martyrdom, I have to say, usually we have like the Muharram, we have things like, say, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, and our colleagues, our friends in this country, they know that these are Muslim festivals. Now, my point that has occupied me for some time now is how would they look at Muharram? Should they be looking at it as it is something, it's a kind of Muslim festival? And given this day and age, and given this civilization, and given the place of religion in this civilization, the truth is that religion in this civilization has not been negated. It has not been rejected. It has only been detached from real life. It has to do nothing with life. It's a decoration piece, it's a furniture. It is, you have so many good things, and you have a religion also, and you compete with each other. Look, my religion is good. I have so many things in this religion, and it is beyond. It does not fit this definition of religion as we have it now. We don't question things. We don't raise. We don't ask what it is. Whatever it is, it could be any irrational, rational. That's not the point. Whatever it is a piece of decoration which you have. You have a religion. So it is considered decency that one should not question it. It is something otherworldly. So it's something beyond questioning. One should not question it. So now, with this view of religion, the problem is that such a thing as Imam Husain's martyrdom, which we want the whole humanity should understand, such a thing would be considered like this, that don't question it, don't try to understand it. It is very holy for Muslims. And it will be in the interest of decency not to ask anything about it. So it is now our responsibility, who are the followers of Ahl Bayt and Imam Hussain, it is our responsibility to come around and tell people that no, it is not that. It is for you to understand, because there is something very solid, very basic that Imam Hussain martyrdom conveys, and that basic thing is the principle of allegiance, the bayah. Bayah was the point of conflict in the whole Karbala. The Karbala was not simply Imam Hussain rising against Yazid. It was not. It was not. Imam Hussain. He reported to have asked that, "Let me see Yazid. Let me talk to him." It was not. It was not that sort of thing. It was simply considered a rejection of Yazid's bayah. That I won't. Imam Hussain said, a person like me will never give allegiance to a person like Yazid. It was so crucial, it was so important that he abandoned Hajj for it and came to underline this point. Now, this point of allegiance, it might have been important then, it was important, but I tell you, it was not as important then as it is important now. We have seen in past history, people used to go with the religion of the monarch, with the religion of the ruler. I have seen a tele-serial about Prophet Yusuf, and in that, when Firaun was ruling Egypt, and when Yusuf, when he came to Egypt, and when he took over the reins of Egypt, then a public announcement was made that from here on, people of Egypt are following the religion of Yusuf. This is how it went. This is how it was. But these days, it's not. It is people. People have to take decisions. So now the question of allegiance has become more important. That what is the principle of leadership? Can anybody lead us? Or is there a qualification for leadership? Now, this principle was asserted by Imam Hussain in Karbala, and this was asserted very loudly by the language of action. He laid down his life and the life of his near and dear ones, and there was something. I mean, we must understand, if it was not that important, he would have not done this. Since he did this, we have to understand its importance. And I tell you, this is at the core of this is a human civilizational issue. Let us put it this way. It is human civilizational issue because civilization has two basic components. One is how people organize, how societies are formed, how polities are formed. The next is, what is the principle of leadership? Who will lead? Who will lead the society? Who will lead the polity? Now, Imam Hussein's martyrdom concerns this. So it's a crucial human civilizational issue that is involved here. And we need to understand it, and we need to explain it to other people.
Thank you so much, Aga. I will come back to you on this point. Mohsin Bhai, I would like to ask you, how do you see the kind of, if we take it as a kind of resistance, from the perspective of resistance, which Imam Hussain showed to the time of the tyrant, and you can say he stood against the truth, and he didn't, as Aga said, like he didn't accepted any kind of allegiance in favor of like Yazid and he stood against him even with very little amount of people, you can say. So how do you see that? How are we really conveying this message to the world as well in an effective way? How do you see that when we are commemorating Muharram? What kind of approach we should have or we must have, and what we are doing and where we are lacking, if you can give some guidance on that.
Well, I think no matter how much we do, it's never going to be enough in terms of conveying such a message. The power, the weight, the depth the beauty and the grace of the message which Imam Hussain Islam has gifted us and has entrusted us with as a legacy, as a heritage, is, as Dr. Sam said, so weighty that actually nobody can really do justice to that. That's the reality, other than, I believe, ultimately the Imam Masumin, or the really pure scholars and the people who have that maqam, or the station of purity and honesty and wisdom and dignity and all those virtue ethics which Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Imam Hussain al-Islam and all the Imam Masumin have taught us. So we're not really ever, I think, going to be able to get to that sort of standard to be able to deliver the true message of Imam Hussain al-Islam. And Imam Khomeini said very clearly that there were a couple of things that he, as far as he was concerned, the message was really all about. And he said, Imam Hussein taught us all how to stand up and resist cruelty and the government of tyranny. So there are two things here. One is the issue of justice, tackling cruelty, and the other is actually practically also tackling governments of tyranny. I think these are two really interesting points which often the Elit don't focus on, or certainly didn't focus on as much in recent history until the revolution of 1979. On the whole, the Shia polity had also drifted into a kind of situation where they were content with rulers who were essentially secular or worldly or material, and they became very content with a kind of Shiism which was very temporal. It was something which dealt with your rituals and your practices and your remembrance and such things, which were in fact the basis of building and maintaining true Islam in the first place, i.e. Azadari. But when Azadari gets turned into the only aspect of Imam Hussain al-Islam's legacy, then it's devoid of a practical element. And the practical element is what Imam Khomeini has alluded to, and that is that the result, the product of Azadari, the product of, if you like, focusing on the life of Imam Hussain al-Islam and following his way, his sunnah, would be the tackling of tyranny and injustice. That's the logical conclusion. I can come to no other conclusion than that. And that tyranny can be on a small basis in your own home, as a husband who might be cruel to his wife, or uncaring about his children, up to the macro scale of looking at modern day money mafia structural elites which impose their systems of tyranny around the world. And on a more obvious scale, you could look at it through the nation states, such as the Zionist state of Israel or America, and their imperialist and cruel, if you like, actions, certainly in the Muslim world and well beyond, actually on their own people as well, through other means which I can go to later. So I really stand by, I think, first of all, these kinds of statements, certainly that I sort of comment Khomeini made. I mean, he said, he reminded us, for instance, that every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. Now, some Shias object to that. They say only Imam Hussain al-Islam is exclusive, and Karbala is exclusive, and therefore they're consigning it to history, saying that actually, look, that's so exclusive, so perfect that Imam Hussain al-Islam, we can't really emulate that. Well, it's an argument which is mute, because what Imam Khomeini says implies that the Husseini movement must be kept alive and active everywhere and at all times. That's what that statement means. And for those who want to relegate Imam Hussain al-Islam only the confines of history, only to tears, only to remembrance for 10 days at Muharram, I'm afraid that they're missing out totally on the actual critical point of Imam Hussain al-Islam's actions in Karbala and throughout his life, because his actions throughout his life matched exactly what he did at Karbala. Karbala was simply the microcosm, or the kind of the encapsulation of everything that his holy grandfather did and everything that the Imam Masumin did after him as well. So I would say that unless those who call themselves Shia, and of course I'm also going to bring the Sunni fraternity in, because they also say they believe in Imam Hussein and his actions in Karbala as being ones that should be aspired to. Well, my question is, how do you aspire to that in your daily lives, in your actions around, in your immediate community or society? And then how do you do that on an international stage? I'm afraid if your actions don't match the kind of actions that Imam Hussein is, the bravery and the courage and the stand that he took, then we have to look more carefully at the way we're interpreting Imam Hussein Islam or interpreting Karbala, and recognize that perhaps we're not doing it quite so well. I'll come back later to, and I'll leave it on this for this kind of question, but I'll come back to it later, because many scholars have looked at this. Ayatollah Mutahari, if you look at his writings on Imam Hussein Islam, if you look at even Imam Khomeini's or Ayatollah Khamenei's writings, or Sayyid Bakr Sadr's writings, or if you look at Dr. Ali Shariati and his writings, you'll see the same narrative, the same line of active, practical, action based on Imam Hussein Islam's legacy being an imperative, being an absolute vital vajibat, I would argue. And I think that the concept of red Shiism and black flag Shiism, red flag Shiism, black flag Shiism, were very interesting concepts which Dr. Ali Shariati used to highlight the difference between those people who follow Imam Hussein Islam simply in an emotional sense, and those who follow emotionally and practically.
So, Aga, I will come back to you, as Brother Mohsen said, talk about like some red Shiaism and the black Shiaism. So, how do you see that point, and how do you see that Imam Hussein, what kind of values he reflected through his action? Are we trying to train our youth and our youngsters, or our male, female, who, I mean, all the society or the community in those terms, that they are educated enough to fight back against tyrant people around the globe, and they can stand for truth, and they would be able to sacrifice themselves and everything they have in terms of following the path of truth, in terms of talking about justice peacefully, and raising their voice in favor of oppressed people. So how do you see that, Aga? So if you can, if you would like to add some more points on that.
Yes, I think when we talk about such subjects as the current one, the Imams and martyrdom, there are so many things, everything important in itself, in its own place. There are so many things which get sort of mixed up, and we should always take care that we keep things in their own place, and we don't lose sight of the individual importance and significance of everything associated with it. Now, with Imam Hussein's martyrdom, the most simple, but the most, I would say, valuable thing, simple as well as valuable, is the emotional thing. People love Prophet, and people love the loveliest of Prophet. Imam Hussein was the nafs of Prophet. Prophet loved him. So Muslims love Imam Hussein, and when they see what happened, they come to tears, they go mad, and this is what has happened. This is an aspect, and this is simple and most valuable. I mean, no books need to be read, no reflection is needed. It is spontaneous. It is, and it has to happen. But so we should keep inside that.
I guess
It is.
yeah.
Sorry.
I guess you were frozen, so if you can repeat that point again, please.
Yeah, I was saying about the individual elements in some overall, in a package, in a whole. Let us say Imam Hussein's martyrdom we are talking of a whole. Now, in this whole, there are so many individual elements. And when we are talking about it, we should not lose sight of the individual elements, their own significance and their own importance. And in that, I was saying that the most simple but the most valuable thing is the emotional attachment and the feeling of and the feeling it evokes, it creates, that what has been done to the grandson of Prophet. This is this is this is an important element, and this has its own place. But what has come out so far, as Mohsen was also talking about Imam Khomeini and the Islamic Revolution, or Ali Shariati, and the what I can call as a sort of a tajdeed, a reformation of the Shia political thought. What has happened so far is this martyrdom, Imam Hussain martyrdom, has been given a clear forward dimension. It had not so far. We were mourning about it. We were saying what happened, who did it, and all this. That was okay. We were feeling for it. But what's the way forward? Where can we pick up where Imam Hussain left? This was exactly what Imam Khomeini said after the Islamic Revolution. He said, we just picked up where Imam Hussain had left it. So he connected it. He made it a historical continuity. At that time, apparently, Imam Hussein's entourage and all those people, they were killed, and all that massacre. At that time, it did not happen. It happened now. That we have pushed the Yazid out of Iran, the Shah of Iran. So at that time Yazid could not be pushed. Now we have done it. So it was he connected it, and he made it a historical continuity. That is a significant.
I would like to stop you for a moment. We do have a caller. He might have a question if you can hear that. Assalamu alaikum. Who is calling and where you calling from? What kind of question?
Salam to you, Faiza, and Dr. Saab. I'm very sorry to interrupt, because the outcome is so good, and it is the need of the time. What you all are discussing, it is the need of the time. It is for the future of our kids, and I just wanted to appreciate your efforts, and all of you. This is what is required to be told to the young kids and everybody, that why we practice, how we practice. We don't only wear the black dress. We know the reasons. We know the path, and मुझसे अच्छा आप लोग बता सकेंगे कि कितनी अच्छी गुफ्तगू हो रही है. And please keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kazim. Thanks a lot. So, Aga, I would like you to continue with that. So, if you can address to the nation or the people who are listening as well, like what are the things we can add in, for example, in this Muharram especially? The way you said, like we have Imam Khomeini has connected through his mission with the like legacy of Imam Hussain al Islam. What he did, he tried to connect us with that. So now who we are, like we are celebrating a Muharram every year. So how we can be more efficiently connected to that? And when we talk about Imam Hussain al Salam, he says like, I came for reformation of Ummah. He didn't say I came for reformation of Sunni or Shia or this and that. He came for Ummah, and Ummah include not only the Muslim, even I guess, if we look at it broadly, it is even the non-Muslim, even the people who are coming from different races. And if there is anything wrong happening to them, he would also be standing against them as well, in their favor as well. I mean, so I would want to know what kind of values we can add in these Muharram celebration nights, like which could awake our youth, our people as well. So the same question I would ask Mohsin Bhai as well, but I would ask you to finish first, and then I will go back to Mohsin Bhai.
Yes, as I said at the beginning, broadly these are two things: the Imam said martyrdom and what followed as a narrative. And I must again emphasize that this was founded by Lady Zainab. He because as Ali Shiriti said, a martyrdom has always two aspects. One is blood, the other is message. So the message carries the mission of the martyr, because martyrdom is a very conscious act. It's not as we sometimes call Mazloom, Shaheed Mazloom. That has its own meaning. How water was denied to them, what sort of oppression was done. That has its own. But let me emphasize as strongly in as strong words as I have at my disposal. Let me say that Imam Hussain chose to do what he did. He was not caught in a trap. It's not that he was Muslim, he was caught in a trap. No, he chose it and he abandoned Hajj for it. We must be a bit, we must understand what was the point. I mean, maybe we are not understanding it fully, as Mohsin said. This is because this is so, this is an act of Imam. We are not perhaps going to able to go to the depths of it. But there are definitely depths, because otherwise he would have not done it. So I would say that these Muharram processions and Azadari, look, there's a hadith that Salat is the Miraj of Mumin. Salat is something which takes Mumin to God. But how many people do it as that? How many people go to God, fly to God as when they are in Salat? I was told once by an alim. He was on television. He said once an imam was leading prayers, and once he shortened as he was praying, as he was leading the prayers. He shortened them. He was not that, as compared to his usual way of duration, he shortened. And then one of the followers after Salat asked him, sir, what was the reason? So he was very happy. He told him, oh, you take care of this, that how much, what's the duration of my Salat? That means you are very attentive. The follower told him, yes, sir, I have 3 shops. Usually, I do all my maths and arithmetic of my 3 shops during the Salat. Today, I could do only of 2 shops. That means the Salat was shorter today. So now I was saying how many people are considering Salat as Miraj. So when things become ritualized, this spirit goes off. That is what applies to Muharram and Azadar. This spirit is something else. It is not ritualistic. It is not putting on clothes or beating chest in a particular rhythm. It's not that. We should not forget the spirit of it. And about the spirit, I again should repeat that one is that we have to look forward and we have to look at the world, and from that point of view, my voice is coming back to me. Is everything okay?
I don't know. We do have everything fine, but maybe there is some problem on your part, or maybe on the
Yeah, I
part.
mean,
I'm not sure.
you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I was saying, keeping it brief, I was saying that we have to have its a forward-looking vision, and also a general principle which comes out of this Muharram, and which we must understand during this Muharram, is that uh, for a principle, to stand by a principle, we have to do what it takes. It's not uh, principles and beliefs and convictions which make one what he is, which make one's being. Principles and convictions and beliefs, they are not luxury. They are not luxury items. They have made you what you are, and you should be able to stand for them at any cost. And that is what Imam Sayyid martyrdom was. So that's a very generic principle from that. But let me close it by saying something which relates to the Muslim Ummah, that the Muharram processions and the Azadari, it is politically very significant. It is politically significant in the sense that it raises the question of when Muslims take pride that we have 56 countries, so, and we have these, we had these big empires. There was Ottoman Empire. There is this and there is that. The question is being raised that what about this? What about what was done in Karbala? What about this? And this question remains pertinent as long as corrupt leadership rules Muslim world. As long as there are corrupt, and as long as there's a leadership which has no resemblance to what Prophet had said, as long as that leadership is in the majority of Muslim world, this question raising by Muharram assumes more and more significance.
Aga, thank you so much, Aga. I will come back to Mohsin Bhai. Mohsin Bhai, I want to know, like, when we talk about Imam Hussain, and we often like discuss this quote, like that death with dignity is better than life of a humiliation. So how do you see the life of whole ummah? Is that the life of dignity? Is that the life of a live person, the way Imam Hussain or Ahlul Bayt or especially Rasul Khuda sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted us to live like? I mean, so how would you see that, and how we can revive those values which make us alive when we are, even if we are dying or if we are alive, like living like a human life or something? So how would you see that? Are we really alive and living a dignified life around the globe, or we are like a form of if we are living a life of humiliation? How would you respond to that?
Well, I think they define wisdom as knowing the correct place of things, and for that you require knowledge, and certainly you require experience, and you require the ability to be awake, both spiritually and in the physical sense of the word. So there are many prerequisites to being a person who is, first of all, awake enough to understand what one's obligations and responsibilities are in the divine sense of knowing one's mission in life. From that perspective, I would say that most human beings, we fail rather miserably. Some of us awaken as life goes on and the experience builds in, and wisdom begins to emerge. However, what's preventing even the Shia Muslims, those who call themselves the followers of Ahlul Bayt, who should be the most awakened because they have access to the most purest of messages of Tawheed, of monotheism, the most purest messages in terms of the communication from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of the Quran, and most importantly, the most purest personifications of the Holy Quran and the most purest personifications of the Sunnah and the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to live as optimal human beings. Now, practically, what tends to happen is that the societies we live in are constructed in a way which creates obstacles on the one hand. Secondly, our own cultures often create obstacles in the way of us living in those optimal Islamic ways. Thirdly, it's often our lack of knowledge and our lack of education, spiritually and otherwise, which prevent us choosing those paths. Often it's our ego, and this is another important one, that our own ego itself and our will through the waswasa of shaitan and through our own desires will lead us away from leading that optimal way of life. So if I was to list the number of ways in which we are far from leading the optimal Muslim way of life, we'd need an entire new program. But just to give you perhaps some examples of what I've noted in my own life through practice and by observing, around me, first of all, the difference between us and Imam Hussein al-Islam is that he had no difference between his word and his deed. The difference between us and Imam Hussein al-Islam and his way of life was that he never compromised on those ethical and virtuous values which he was aware of from his holy grandfather, from his father, from his holy mother, and he never parted from those. Now, the things that separate us from Imam Hussein al-Islam are also that in practical ways, we won't think of justice at every moment. Imam Ali al-Islam very famously blows out the candle which is on the government's expense when Zubair comes to on a personal level, and Imam Ali al-Islam lights a candle which is from his own funds. Now, that scale, that level of justice, first of all upon ourselves, is something that I think is worthy of taking note. That awareness, having the awareness of knowing the virtues and the ethics by which we must live, is probably the first point of traveling towards living the optimal Muslim life. If you can't do that on a personal level, if I can't do that, or whenever I can't do that, I am away from the life that Imam Hussein would have wanted me to live, in my opinion. I think that awakening to, there are things that we can do in terms of the educational systems and the way we operate to get ourselves out of this tendency to move away from the optimal life that Imam Hussein or the Prophet, peace be upon him, would have wanted us to live. Some of those are often overlooked. For instance, the idea of giving the tools of inquiry and critical thinking to children. So if you want children to live the life of Imam Hussein al-Islam, you can either force them, even if they're Shia or they're Muslim or whatever, and from birth you can force them into following certain things that you think are Husseini and that lifestyle, or you can equip them with the ability to think and the ability to rationalize, the ability to use logic, the ability to use those kind of critical thinking skills, which will allow those children to make the right moral choices. I mean, again, and with the second aspect of morality and virtue ethics, you can't necessarily teach virtue ethics and morality. You have to show it. And Imam Hussein al-Islam's life, if you look at it, was spent, first of all, nurtured in the cradle, in the arms of Bibi Fatima Zahra al-Islam, and in the shadow of Imam Ali al-Islam, and of course the shadow of the Prophet as well. So you can see that the virtue ethics that he was receiving in his own household was extraordinarily important. And he imbibed that, he lived it, and he then produced it in his own character.
I have a question on that point a little bit. I often think about it and I often raise it as well, that when it comes to the material world, and even if we are doing any professional job, or even we are doing any, we do have to do anything. For instance, even if somebody has to take visa, for instance, for America or Europe or anywhere, they do complete all the requirements it does have. For instance, they read each and every line so many times, discuss it with many people, and then do everything they can to provide all the things they required for that visa, for instance, or that job, or anything they are heading towards. But when it comes to Islam, when it comes to Imam Hussein, when it comes to Karbala, or it comes to the message of Ahlul Bayt, then we see we just say so many things, but we don't want to act upon them. Even though you raised this point initially that we are not acting the way Imam Hussein, whatever he said, he did. So why do you see these differences within us? Why do we do that? How we can eradicate this kind of habit, or you can say this kind of behavior? How we can improve our, even at least youth or the children? They won't do that. They would at least don't behave the way we are behaving. For instance, this kind of hypocritical kind of life where we say something and do something and want something, kind of. So how would you respond to this point? How we can avoid that, especially within our children and our youngsters, and even within ourselves?
It's our behavior. It really is down to one simple thing. If our behavior matches those virtue ethics that we believe in, then that's a lesson that the child will watch. The children are like us as human beings. We're creatures which learn through metaphor. We watch the world and we make stories, because there's a film running every time. Whenever you're looking at anything, that's a film. It's a story. There's a story unfolding in front of you all the time. You are a story. So the point is that your behavior is the story which your children are going to watch at every moment. So when you argue and fight, when you eat your food in a sort of a barbaric manner, or you insult or abuse somebody, or you lie or you cheat, or you do these behaviors, and your child is watching, of course, that is the akhlaq, that is the behavior that they will pick up. So I'd say the first thing is that we've got to the best of our ability, to behave in the way that we know is morally and ethically the way Imam Hussein Islam behaved. But of course, moral relativism is a very dangerous seductress. In this modern age, we have so many things to seduce us. In fact, there is an active propaganda and an engineered program of cultural seduction, which actually is constantly attacking us. So not only you have the waswasa, which we talk about shaitan, and we think of waswasa often as some little red pointy eared little fellow with a tail, and he's Iblis, and he's running around quietly trying to whisper to us to do wrong things. The truth is that waswasa is in front of us all the time when in a Western society. And God bless him, Ayatollah Jawad Amali, one of the Supreme Guardianship Council members, said to us when I was visiting Iran, he said, look, first of all, you Muslims that ended up in Britain, he said it to the whole group, not to me directly, but he essentially gave us a talk. He said, first of all,
58 minutes, so I think so there are 2-3 minutes left. I would ask you to conclude 1 minute.
I'll be very brief. He said, what are you guys doing in London? Why did you go there? If you did not go because Islam was your primary purpose, then you shouldn't be there. Now, the point is, what he was intimating for me, I think, encapsulates the discussion that we're having. Imam Hussein al-Islam gave us a purpose for truth, for justice, for ethics, for morality, that is all contained within the Holy Quran. Focus on that, we learn that, and we live it. Then, inshallah, we're fulfilling what happened, what Imam Hussein wanted us to do through his sacrifice in Karbala. And that can mean fighting on the fronts against evil tyrants who are killing children in Western Asia, or it can mean working hard for your family and earning them a halal wage and looking after them. Simple as that.
Aga, I want you to give a conclusive message, especially how we can reach to the world regarding the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
Well, I will say it in a
1 minute maximum. That's the point.
Sorry?
We just have to finish in 58 minutes, so that's why I'm just saying, like, if it could be.
You mean 58 seconds, you mean?
Yeah, you can say.
Okay, yeah. Yes. I will come to that question of that comparison of American visa, and you were saying that we fulfill everything, and you have given an example which makes my point very clear. The point I made at the beginning, and that is I would like to conclude with. That is that American visa, American job that relates to our real life. Religion, Imam Hussein do not relate to our real life. We hardly think rationally about it, because something which does not relate to real life, we don't think about that rationally. We hold that in respect. That's it. So the point is, as we were discussing about Imam Khomeini and Islamic revolution, that we have to religion, divine guidance, it is precisely for relating to one's life in this world. There is no other purpose. So these are the points of religion. The book, the people who demonstrated, like Imam Hussein, the personification of divine ideals. These are the things which we have to relate to our real life, and that's it. That I will say is if we can understand that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Aga, for joining in, and thank you so much, Mohsin Bhai. It was honor to have you both on the show, and it was lovely talking to you. Inshallah, we'll see you some other time together, and I'll take a leave from you. And just to the viewer, I would finish with a message of Aga Rehbar Khamenei. He says that today's the word is witness to the rule of unbelief, arrogance, corruption, and oppression. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is Imam Hussein alayhi salam's message is a message to save the world. So we all have to get together in that kind of, you can say, battlefield, or in kind of action we have to take to make a peaceful world, a world which is positive, full of love, and full of human values. So with this message, I will take a leave, and we'll see you inshallah next time. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.